All righty, it is time for our week 3 Red Rain podcast, episode 158. Please welcome in your host, Walter Mitchell.
Thank you, Kyle Little Rock Ledbetter, sporting his University of Arizona sweatshirt. His mom is a U of A grad, so he's probably wearing this, and his hat du jour is a San Diego Padres vintage cobalt blue hat with white lettering. So he's fired up.
Yes, U of A class of 1993. Woo.
That's awesome. So he's going to bring a good vibe for us today because we need it after the tough game the Cardinals had yesterday with the Lions, a 20-13 final that we're going to discuss right now. We'll have some videos to discuss. I just want to start off from the start that there was very little carryover, unfortunately, the Cardinals got from week 2 to week 3. Things I wished would have gone better is no black jerseys. Those are kind of ugly, I think, to begin with, and we never win in them. I think since we went to all black and we're 0-4, or the new uniforms were 0-4. It seems so early in the season to do something gimmicky. The other thing was, we just won maybe our best football game in ages in red, come back the next week in red, and take that football right off the bat like we did last week. Instead, we arrive in black. We defer the kickoff to the Lions, who summarily marched the ball downfield in a long time-consuming drive. That was very frustrating. It's not what you want to start a game. It's icing your offense, although our offense did respond very well. We'll talk about that. But yeah, would have loved to have seen the Cardinals get the ball first because of how well they've played on first possessions and approach this game from trying to get up rather than trying to come from behind. Obviously they didn't want what they got from, the Lions in the first possession. But the Lions went 9 plays, 70 yards in, close to 5 minutes. And, was pretty easy. The first third down we got in passing situation, the Cardinals, don't cover anyone. How easy do they keep making it for Jared Goff to play against them? It was their tight end Laporta for 12 yards and nobody's near him. And it's an easy pitch and catch on a 3rd and 5 from the Detroit 45. What is going on there? At least last week we started to try to play man-to-man coverage and got some things done. And now we're back to a soft zone on 3rd down and 5 where no one's near the receivers. All first half, it seemed like every receiver was wide open. There might be a triangle of Cardinals around, but they're all like 6-7 yards away. Whereas you look on the other end with the Lions, their defenders will have 3 guys in an area and they're all sticky. A huge difference in the game right from the start is that the Cardinals aren't covering anyone and the Lions are. And at least they're trying, much harder, and they're playing much harder to cover. And I don't know why you can't carry it over from last week where we were trying to make plays on the Rams receivers and we're covering them much better than what they did opening up against the Lions. It's just easy gifts. You know, I mean, every pass that Goff threw in the first possession was wide open and for 10 plus yards. I mean, you know, dang.
Well, it was
So
literally every pass because he was 12 for 12 in the first half to start the game. I don't know the exact number, but I'm sure it's going to be about 4 seconds of time in the pocket because there wasn't a lot of great pressure early on either. So when you combine not getting
yes,
pressure on the quarterback, dropping back into zone coverages at times. And I know we have some plays of this having Starling Thomas one-on-one with Amon-Ra St. Brown. It was
right,
a recipe for disaster from the beginning defensively. And it's the same thing we talked about in the second half of the Buffalo game. There were no negative plays for 3 or 4 drives early on in the game, and that just makes it impossible for your offense to work
right,
forward. Even the
right,
Rams game, I mean, the biggest asset the defense had was a 14-0 lead, which made it so that the Rams, who were already shorthanded on the offensive line and receiving core, pretty much had to throw the ball for the rest of the game. And even that was a tremendous advantage for your defense because the Rams offense, which isn't that great in the first place, became predictable.
yeah. Although they rebounded well yesterday. I mean, I kept saying to people all week who were like, "Oh, the Rams suck because the injuries and everything." No, 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 no. They still had a lot of really good players on offense. You had two all, Pro Bowl guards. They had a Pro Bowl worthy right tackle. I mean, you had Kyron Williams who's run amok against us for and seems like forever, although it's only a few games. But you had him. You have Matthew Stafford who's beaten us consistently. You had Cooper Kupp. I mean, this team was not void of talent by any means, and you have Sean McVay running his vaunted offense. But jumping out, you said it perfectly. Jumping out to that lead was huge for the Cardinals, and it set the tone. But the Lions set the tone here in this game. March down the field, they get the kickoff. March down the field in easy fashion. I mean, they only had one third down the whole time. I mean, it was just a gift. And Montgomery was just gashing them. And we were getting whooped up front. So that was tough. So it's 7-7. I mean 7-0. But then the Cardinals respond. So first drive again, they get a touchdown. And let's go to the video. We got a couple videos here. I'll chronicle this a little bit. So the first one I queued up was of Kyler on a nice scramble. This was a 1st and 20, so we are sort of in a hole, and it was off the Hernandez hole, which was unusual. He's gotten a couple this season so far, which is unusual for him. But here's a nice escape by Kyler to his left. They lost contain. I'm sure their coaches were pissed. Look at that. Great way to get out of a 1st and 20 hole. The other amazing thing on this play, let's go back when we run it again from the top, is how well Jackson Barton played at right tackle. I mean, amazingly, they're not giving him any help here on Hutchinson. But look at how Barton shields Hutchinson from Kyler and gives Kyler the time to be able to break off and extend this play. Also, Paris Johnson's doing a great job on his tackle. His tackle's trying to sell a hold there.
Which is a great
Doesn't
job by
get
him
it.
to not hold, because that's the most
Correct.
prototypical time you see a hold is when quarterback breaks contain. You're trying to restrict
Right.
the edge rusher. Great job by him.
Right. And now look at Barton. finishing off the block on Hutchinson.
Pancakes. We got pancakes.
Yep. IHOP special. So, good way to get out of that hole. And then we'll cue up the next play, which is just a work of art. And unfortunately, it was the only touchdown the Cardinals had all day. But look at love Marvin in the slot here on the cross corner. And with a little rub there. Perfectly designed play, perfectly executed.
I remember as I was watching the game right there, when a little bit before that, but like right as the ball's about to leave Kyler's hand and I see Marvin there, I say touchdown because I know that he's got, I don't remember the corner for the Lions specifically, but he's got 23 beat, 32, which is Brian Branch as the safety, is trying to help, but he's lost positioning at this point. And so as soon as the ball leaves Kyler's hand, I know it's a touchdown because he's already got both of them trailing here. I think it was the Eagles game. They ran a similar type of play with I think it was Goddard, and they got a big gain out of it too.
Right. So in these two plays, we've seen the two things that I was hoping that Kyler could improve in the offseason. We've seen his ability to escape the pocket. You know, it wasn't up the middle, but at least it was wide to put pressure on the defense to know, hey, you got to defend the whole field with me. And then this, notice how Kyler floats to his left. Notice how the block by Barton is good enough on Hutchinson, but knowing Hutchinson's coming from his right, Kyler, and look at the stonewall block you're getting there with Hernandez, who comes over for the pull block. He stonewalls his guy. It's a beautifully designed play, and it's designed for him to float to his left, set up, and deliver a dime to Marvin Harrison Jr. Look at that. Look at that. Work of art. So it's just too bad that, you know, that was it for TDs on the day. First drive TD and nothing thereafter, which is kind of hard to imagine given what we saw last week.
While we're talking about the first drive TDs, my favorite stat from the week came up on the broadcast, which said that this was the third week in a row that the Cardinals scored an opening drive touchdown, and that was the first time since 2006. Yes. 2006 was the last time the Cardinals scored 3 opening drive touchdowns in 3 consecutive games.
Gotta love it. So kudos to that. But now the Lions' response is to go 73 yards in 70 yards in 13 plays, taking off 7 minutes and 41 seconds of the clock. Oh, that was just excruciating. I mean, and it ran out the first quarter with it. So the Cardinals touched the ball once in the first quarter. Again, I think I really strongly, urge the Cardinals, if you get a chance to take the ball first, with the way we're set up and the way it worked against the Rams, take it. Get the ball in your hands. Try to get up rather than right from the get-go trying to, work your way back from being down. But so we can cue up the next video. After all this, I mean, again, the only time we had a third down were twice on this drive, and once was with a third down and 1, where Gibbs got 3 yards. So, it's like defenses don't need third downs. There was one other one, a 3rd and 3, and Gibbs went up the middle for 14 yards. Unbelievable. So let's see the next. Oh, okay, yeah. Oh no, yeah, we're ahead of ourselves. I thought I put in the touchdown to St. Brown with Starling covering. Yeah, there it is. All right. You know, it's it makes you wonder why the Cardinals in this game didn't make a more concerted effort to double team St. Brown, who's their go-to receiver. And in a situation like this, you know, you're playing man, and both guys go with Laporta instead. Plus, the running back is wide open, but Armand St. Brown, Armand Ra, fakes the out pass and comes back. They saw this work against the Cardinals, um, you know, in other games, and had checked it, prepared it. I mean, it's a pretty difficult play to defend mano a mano, but what Starling Thomas, the fifth, excuse me, could have done better was get on his inside hip leverage, and so as not to let him be able to cross back over, like get on his hip right now. Unfortunately, he leaves cushion, gives him the alley, and a pretty easy pitch and catch.
The other part I was confused by is right here. You see,
Yeah,
I believe this is Kzyir White right
yeah,
here. And as
yeah.
Laporta goes right past him, now all of a sudden the safety, who's in position to defend where Amon Ra is
Right,
planning to go, now the
right,
safety has to immediately dive out.
right,
Kazier's caught in no man's land right here.
right,
And now all of a sudden you're essentially playing a man-to-man coverage because this guy right here's got to stay on the running back. He's right here on,
right,
I believe that
right.
might be Jameson. I think Kzyir is supposed to kind of stick to Laporta, is my guess, and the play just kind of blows up as soon as Laporta
Yeah,
goes right past him.
yeah, yeah. Now let's look at it one more time to see what kind of pressure or not the Cardinals get on this play. Look at that pocket, textbook.
With a left guard right here
You
who's
would have
got
hoped
all
a
the
better
time.
result than that from Zaven. And who's this, Gardeck?
Let's see. Looks like, yeah, you've got Gardeck, you've got Zaven,
Yeah,
you've got Nichols, and I don't know who the fourth person is. Maybe that's Stills.
Jones,
Maybe it's Jones.
Justin Jones.
Yeah, I just can't see what number it is, but yeah.
Yeah, disappointing. So, but you know, the thing that makes it curious to me is Starling Thomas the fifth really our cornerback one now? Um, so they did switch and put Sean Murphy-Bunting, but that didn't work either. Um, it's too bad Sean Murphy-Bunting has not been the kind of impact player that the Cardinals are paying him to be. He's just not making plays. I mean, on the hook and ladder, it's just ridiculous how he plays that play. And it's as if the Lions knew they could run that play because of the instant separation they could get whenever they wanted. So let's go to the next. All right, that's at the end of the half. Let's come back to that one. Go to the next one after that. Here it is, the hook and ladder. I mean, that's Murphy-Bunting guarding St. Brown. And look at how he lets him just cross over his face and he doesn't work hard enough to get back to the ball. Look at how easy that is. I mean, kind of an insult to the Cardinals defense to think that they can just pull that off so easy as they did. You know, like I just kept saying in the first pass to my good pal Trish, who I was watching the game with, is this Cardinal defense in the first half was offering the paths of least resistance. This is just so dang easy. I mean, it's unacceptable. But amazingly, the Cardinals defense at halftime gets some things sorted out and keeps the team in the game. And now let's go back to that controversial play with the 2-minute warning. Oh, so frustrating. So look at this. 3rd and 12, 2 minutes left. We're trying to get the ball back. They snap the ball right at the 2-minute mark. But it's clear by the way that Mack Wilson ran the ball back, he knows the whistle had blown. I mean, otherwise he would have been like flying. I mean, a number of the players heard the whistle, so they technically could not count this play if they wanted to. Once the whistle was blown, everything's dead from there. And you see some players sort of halfway reacting to the play, thinking that knowing that the play was called dead from there.
Yeah, you can kind of see it briefly right here. The Lions receiver, I don't know who this is right here, but he kind of comes up, he's kind of jogging at that point, which was kind of my thought during it. It's like it stinks, but I think it stinks more because Wilson took it back for a touchdown on the theoretical play. But the play never happened. That was just kind of my thought. Is like the play never existed. It wasn't like, oh, they took it off the board. People just stopped playing.
Yeah, once the whistle blew, that was it. Now, here's my issue. My issue is with the NFL rules. So, and I documented this on Twitter. At the 3:02 mark, the Lions ran the previous play. Right? They get back in the huddle, get back out on the ball. Clock's running. It was a 1-yard gain or whatever. It's now 3rd and 12. And now they incur this penalty at the 3:20 mark. I mean, it's the 2:20 mark. A false start. So they penalize them so they penalize them back to this point. So it was 3rd and 7. And now it's 3rd and 12. So at the 2:20 mark, they allow the clock to start again. I mean, what the frick? How is that allowed? How do they get the advantage of being to run a single play in 1 minute and 2 seconds? Think about it. From 3:02 to 2 minutes, we saw one play. That clock should have been stopped at 2:20. The Rams, I mean the Lions shouldn't deserve to be able to run this clock down to the 2-minute warning at all. They incurred the penalty. And since when are you giving up a whole minute of clock for one football play? It's just flat out wrong. So, I mean, this play should have never happened because if the rules are doing the teams justice, if they just stop the clock at 2:20 and make it run from there. And then the most galling thing of all is that on 3rd and 12, you remember what happened?
I do
Jahmyr
indeed.
Gibbs up the middle through Cardinal would-be tacklers for like 14 yards. I was just ready to, I mean, an awful defensive half punctuated by that. It was just just so frustrating and so unacceptable. I mean, and then of course the Lions go down and score. They score another touchdown. Unbelievable. Unfortunately, the Cardinals were able to get a field goal back, but the momentum and all that. Well, credit Nick Rouse and his staff at halftime for coming up with a plan to slow those Lions scoring efforts down. So that's what makes this game redeemable, is that what happened in the second half. Let's go to the tape and see some of the good plays. We got a number of, I queued up a few of the really good ones. All right. This was the Mack Wilson sack. The Mack attack. They're using him more on the edge, and I think it's a great idea.
And one more time here, but it was a great job from right there. There's like a chip block by, I think it's
Right.
either Laporta or Brock Wright. I can't remember if he was still in the game at that
And
point, but you
hold it,
see,
right. Hold it right there. Look at hat on hat, hat on hat, hat on hat, hat on hat. This is the way the Cardinals have to play defense if they're going to be competitive. And so this is what's called a classic coverage sack. Goff is looking for his number one covered, hat on hat, hat on hat. We have a safety in the middle. We got potential double team here. We're bracketing the receiver here. We got hat on hat there. We have the linebacker taking the tight end. All is really well played here. And this is what we got more of in the second half, even though this is the best play of the first half.
and if you can get pressure with 4, which I'm going to play it quickly here, watch this right here. I can't tell
Right.
which number it is, but he pushes Goff out of the pocket. And once the pocket
Yeah.
collapses, Goff had a couple times where he escaped, most
Yep.
notably the last play of the game, and was able to make something out of it. But Goff notoriously struggles with short time to throw and
Right.
disguises, which the next play will be one of those
Right.
examples of a disguise. But pushing him out of the pocket there, right into Mack Wilson, and then
Right.
obviously left
That's
tackle missed the
Saban.
block.
Right. That Saban did a great job. So did Gardeck, keeping his outside shoulder free. He had the corner. I was just all around well played by Zaven and Gardeck, and Mack was playing the outside, and came and got it and finished it. So good work.
Here's that disguise that I was just talking about with the
Yeah.
interception.
Yeah. Beautiful. Oh, look at the flip. Ah, gotta love Gardeck. He's a
In
baller.
the second half of the Rams game, McVay and Chris Shula ran a similar type of play exactly like this that led to an
Yep,
interception. And McVay, obviously, he worked with Goff for all these years, but McVay knows exactly that this is the type of play that gets
yep,
Goff off center. Because if he
correct,
right, we'll see right here, he kind of glances briefly right there.
right,
Off the play fake, he thinks Gardeck is right there rushing off the edge. He thinks they're coming with
right,
5. He thinks he has to get the ball out right there.
right.
And so he gets it
And
out
look at
and
his
boom.
shield, right. Notice how one defensive tackle takes out 2 guys and makes them a shield, whereas where Goff can't see, and boom.
I'm trying to think who that
Credit the
is.
Lions for reacting as well as they did. That could have been a house call. Although you have, if you would pause there for a sec, here's what I don't get. So we get this big interception with 8 minutes left in the third quarter. All right. And look at where we end up with the ball already in field goal position. What do the offensive coaches do? That's when they decided to bring in Trey Benson to run the ball twice in a row. I do not understand that at all in that situation. I mean, you've got momentum now. Go for the jugular. I mean, go for it. Put pressure on that defense. I mean, Trey Benson, to his credit, gained like 7 yards on the first carry. My question is coming back again with the run, and this ended up out on downs, wasn't it? I mean, let me just check it.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if this was the turnover on downs or if it was the interception.
Wait, wait, no.
Yep. Uh this was the one where Kyler dove for the first down and they originally gave it to him and then they challenged it and ruled that he was
Yeah,
short of the line to gain on 4th down.
right. Yep, yep. Yeah. So frustrating. I mean, that we made so many mistakes on offense. The
Well, the other
you know
part that
the
I'll add to it also is
yeah,
after the interception, Trey Benson rushes for 6 yards. Trey Benson rushes for 2 yards. Amari DiMercaro rushes for 1 yard, and then it's 4th down, and
right,
Kyler's rolling out to the right. So they go
right.
to Trey Benson, to then Amari DiMercaro, and then Kyler scrambling to the right.
Yeah, and who made the tackle on Kyler?
Uh, let's see. It was Carlton Davis.
Yeah, credit them for having him spying Kyler on that side. Give them a ton of credit. They were prepared for that, and they've seen that before from Kyler on 4th downs. He strung that out. Carlton Davis strung that out really well on the play, obviously. And it looked like Kyler might have gotten it as he stretched out, but the shin was down. Oh, the Kyler short of the first down have haunted us in a number of games. Remember the Philly game where they had a chance to beat, Sirianni and Gannon in their march to the Super Bowl. He had them at home, and Kyler had a chance to win the game at the end. And you remember he slid short of the first down, and then there was chaos, and he thought he had the first down. And Kyler's usually good at knowing where to get to. So, but got to credit the Lions for making a great play there. And I just really question why in that situation we're running the ball 4 times. It's just mind-boggling. I want to talk for a minute about the I didn't get this on tape, but the interception of the deep pass. Um, Kyle, could you see if you can find a video of that? The interception thrown up to Marvin Harrison. I mean, here's my thing about that play, and I've been saying this about Kyler for a few years now about deep passing. Is he throws it habitually late, but in that play, he's taking the ball from center and he's play actioning. And by the time you make the fake and do your, you know, 3-step drop, it's too late to throw that pass. I mean, it's obviously going to be underthrown and it's obviously going to be a 50-50 ball. Problem was, and this was the biggest difference for me in the game, was seeing 3 defenders of the Lions in sticky coverage around guys, whereas not seeing that with the Cardinals. In fact, on numerous occasions, Goff was hitting the holes in between 3 defenders, Cardinals, none of whom were within 5 yards of the receiver. He had a hell of a game. I mean, if you're going to run this play over with Kyler, take it from center, take a 3-step drop, and let it go. Like right now, not then. It's surprising to me with Kyler's experience that he threw this ball. And look at the protection here. He would have had all day to find someone else. But I don't know what he's looking at, because there are three defenders all down there. And it drew the safety, Kirby Joseph.
Or the other thing that happens here, and I'm going to pause it because we can't see the full screen here, but I'm going to try and pause it real quick, right about here, where you can see that from line of scrimmage to the 30-yard line, there is one linebacker in the middle. There is man-to-man coverage there. Just take off and run. Like, if there's nothing deep, I know Michael Wilson's in the middle of the field. Maybe he goes there, but, that wasn't the play call. Just take off and go get the first down, because they give him the middle of the field on this play. And if he takes off, he's going to get at least to the first down, maybe pick up 10 to 15 on that play.
Yeah. And, Michael Wilson had a good day with Kyler. That was a good, I think he led the team. And well, Marvin and Wilson both had 64 yards. But here's the big difference. Wilson had 8 catches on 9 targets. Marvin had 5 catches on 11 targets. They got to do something about that. George had 6 targets, got 3 catches for 35 yards, so 11.7. McBride only 3 catches. This is the problem the Cardinals face. And this is what I said when the Cardinals were so intent on drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. was that you have this beautiful, shiny new toy that you want to do all you can to feed. You've got to justify making this pick. There's pressure to do this as well, because people will say, how can you ignore your number 4 pick in the draft, who you played 2 years to try to get? There's pressure. And the thing with that was that McBride and Kyler had such a dynamic connection. Making McBride in this game like a third or fourth choice in the passing game just feels so wrong. And because of him being a tight end and coming out of 12 and 13 personnel, when you hit him, it really makes it harder for the defense to defend the run. And the two are hand in hand. You're trying to run the ball and then run play action. And, McBride's your main guy off of that, because of 12 and 13 personnel. So the whole sort of focus of the offense has shifted away from McBride to Marvin Harrison Jr. And, I don't know how it's going to go from here, but, against the Rams, everything niftily fell into place because Marvin Harrison Jr. got all of his in the first quarter. Then after that, the Cardinals could pound the ball. They could hit other receivers. McBride in that game had better catches. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do to solve this, but it's a problem of, who are you going to feed? What are your priorities? And, and how much attention can you pay to Marvin Harrison Jr. without it affecting the rest of the team on offense? In this game, unfortunately, it hurt. I mean, that's 6 plays that you want back that you could do better use of, and in a game that ended up, a 7-point game. Which, by the way, people are saying Cardinals had a chance to tie. They never had a chance to tie because they didn't get the ball back, and that's a questionable decision in my mind as well. Is that why you take timeouts, which I was glad they did to get the ball back in the fourth quarter. And then, so you have to burn 2 timeouts and then you get to go for the field goal, which I understood, get the field goal, get within 10. I cannot understand why you kick off back to them, why you don't run an onside kick. Because you've had trouble stopping the Lions all day. All right. And to think that all they need is 1 first down and the game's over. Dang. I mean, I don't get that decision at all. And I posted that on Twitter. That was my big concern I mean, if you're going to take your timeouts early, I mean, they had 3 minutes left but only 1 timeout. So, you're going to burn that first timeout off the first play. And you do have the 2-minute warning. But if they get down to the 2-minute warning and they get the first down, the ball game's over. And here's the play that ended it.
Well, I guess the one thing I'll add before we go to that, though, is I guess in devil's advocate mode, Bates, who's the kicker for the Lions, has made 60-yard kicks before. So I guess the argument is even if you do get the stop on the first 3 plays and there's still 2 minutes left, if they go onside, Bates can still hit a 58-yard kick and then you're down 10 anyways. But at least with the onside kick, you have a chance of recovering it.
I'd way rather take my chances with that than getting the ball back in the hands of an offense that has, blown us up for 380 yards and thinking that you can, get the ball back. If the Cardinals got the ball back, then you could say they had a chance to tie the game, but they didn't, unfortunately. So here's Sean Murphy-Bunting. This is a different play. Go ahead, run this one. Running backs down at the knees. And by the way, Buddha played his butt off yesterday again. Got dinged up and still went back in, was making plays. Buda Baker's the best player on this football team, period.
He made
Hands
a
down.
play on the first play back after he got hurt. He went out for 2 plays, came in, and then made I think it was a 3rd down stop
Yeah.
on the same
I mean,
drive.
if he was in on that play, this wouldn't have happened because he wouldn't have tried to tackle him high. But here's my thing with Jonathan Gannon after the game is Jonathan Gannon's claiming that the Cardinals matched the Lions' physicality in this game. What? You cannot be serious. I mean, every stat that speaks to physicality, the Lions dominated. I mean, you cannot be serious to try to sell this to the Arizona media. Oh, well, we held up physically in this game. We matched the physicality. I mean, check out these stats. Total plays. Lions 63, Arizona 53. All right. By 10. Total yards rushing. Lions 187, Arizona 77. That's 110 more yards. They nearly had 200-yard rushers. Total yards, Lions 373, Arizona 277. That's plus 96. Third down conversions, Lions 5 of 12, Arizona 1 for 9. That's a plus 30% difference. Time of possession, and this tells it the best. Lions 36-49, Cardinals 23-11. That's a 13-minute and 39-minute disparity. 39-second disparity. You cannot keep selling false claims, false hypes like this. The Cardinals got whooped on both sides of the ball. You got to tell it like it is. You're not fooling anybody when you say stuff like that. And that's why I don't trust Jonathan Gannon. I don't think he really understands the gravity of what it means to tell the truth. I mean, and try to be honest, and I mean, if the thing was reversed and it happened to Dan Campbell, he'd be saying we got our butts whipped. It's not about the scoreboard; it's about what happens in between the lines. And I mean, the score looks respectable, but in reality, what we saw in the game was unacceptable. Here's the game in a nutshell for the Cardinals. In the first half, the defense was awful. Couldn't stop anything. Gave up 3 touchdowns. Goff is 12 for 12, and they're gashing us in the run game. Nothing went right. You can't play a half of football like that. It was reminiscent of the 3 touchdowns the Bills scored in week 1 in succession that took over that game. So, then in the second half, the offense was awful. Poor decision making by Kyler Murray left and right. Kyler Murray had plenty of time. Don't blame it on the offensive line, which everyone wants to do anytime he struggles. It was not on the offensive line. And this is disappointing. But you go and look at the sidelines, it's back to pouting Kyler. I mean, I think he might be incorrigible. I don't know if he'll ever be able to correct this. Once he makes one mistake, he seems to compound it. What I loved about Carson Palmer was Carson Palmer would get so pissed he made a mistake, he'd come back, with fire coming through his nostrils, and come back with a passion to try to, make up for the mistake. With Kyler, it just seems he gets in a funk. How many of you saw this? The coaches are all saying how Kyler wants to be coached and how coachable he is. How about this? Off of one of the mistakes, Kyler's coming with his tail between his legs to the sideline. And Drew Petzing goes over and wants to talk to him. And Kyler just rolls his eyes and walks right past him. And Drew Petzing has to follow him. And he won't stop for Petzing to talk to him. And then Kyler goes back to the bench and sits there. And people are trying to talk to him. And he's got this mopey face on. These are reality situations here. This is the guy the Cardinals coaching staff and GM is trying to move heaven and earth for. And in a game like this where you're at home and you're coming off a momentous game where Kyler had his best game as a pro, why don't we see a different version of Kyler in this, a more competitive version of Kyler in this game and a more focused version of Kyler in this game? Because in my opinion, he takes himself out mentally. And, he's such a perfectionist that if something goes wrong, he's done. He's cooked. That's the part of Kyler. If that's not going to be something they can coach out of him, then the Cardinals will continue to be an up and down team and not a team of consistencies. I mean, this has been now 3 games where it's shown wild inconsistencies for the Cardinals. They've had one game where they played all 60 minutes in a concerted fashion. But the other 2 games, for whole halves, one side of the ball has been really out of kilter and really ineffective. And you can't win football games like that. So, All right, Kyle, anything to add to that? What do you think, Kyle?
We can wrap it up with this last video that we have here, which is the 3rd and 12 from Mr. Amon-Ra first. And as you will see well, it's a little blurry, but right here, you've got block, 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 sealed off, no pressure with 4. Kind of in no man's land with the safeties right here. Both of them go to, I can't tell if that's Raymond or who that is, but leaves on right there.
Pretty easy. No pressure. Let's go back to that screen for a sec if we can. So, technically, look at how they're lined up. So you got Murphy-Bunting in a up pressing. Okay. Does he try to knock St. Brown off his route from the get-go runner? No. No bump. He gives up. Kyle, point the arrow to the defender who's the farthest to the left on the screen. Right there. If you're going to give up inside leverage, which he does, he's got to be able to rely on the guy sitting right in it. Right there. I don't know who that is. I think
looks like it might be Barnes, maybe. It's not Kzyir White, but it's one of the linebackers.
Right. Right. I don't know what Barnes is thinking. But and plus you have a defender here. I mean, you cannot give up inside leverage without having help. You can't. I mean, and for him to be able to leverage him right away off the snap without buying any time to let your pass rush try to affect the play is disappointing. Just watch other teams, how aggressive they are with their cornerbacks. And the Cardinals just don't do it. I mean, they don't play bump and run, and they will pull guys up. But what's the point if you're just going to lose leverage right off the bat? Like like Murphy-Bunting did on the hook and ladder play. Only this, at least in this play, he's playing a little tighter. But with the game on the line, you Cardinal fans must feel really good about, there was little to feel really good about yesterday, except that the defense in the second half found ways to, shut out the Lions. That was awesome. And unfortunately, they didn't get much help from the offense to be able to, leave this game a winner. But you can't ignore the fact that in the first half, the defense was just flat out awful and unprepared and unaggressive and passive and this and that. So, how do we balance that emotionally and how do we react to that? It's up to you. For me, it makes me nervous. Especially since we've got things figured out a little bit against the Rams, and then we don't come into this game doing them. I mean, why does that happen? Why do we start getting better in coverage versus the Rams and come in this game and don't cover anyone? So, yeah, that's my frustration. And next week we have the Commanders at home. The third of our 3 straight home games. Fortunately, I think we're going back to who we are, wearing cardinal red, and and then of course you got the there'll be a week of talking about Cliff Kingsbury. He comes into town. It'll be interesting to see how he's received by Cardinal fans, who many of whom have basically scapegoated him as being the guy who ruined Kyler. So, which I think is one of the biggest crocs ever. But we'll see what happens next week. Kyle, what are your thoughts?
So, to the point you were talking about with Gannon and Dan Campbell, I think the one thing I'll add also is, even if they're not similar in style or personality or ability, take the wins and losses out of it right now, because the Cardinals have been, if not worst, only behind the Panthers in a lot of categories over the last year and change of Jonathan Gannon's tenure. But if you remember, Dan Campbell at around this time in his tenure with the Lions was 3-19-1. He started out 3-19-1 as coach of the Lions.
Right.
And then they started to find their stride. Like, even though the wins weren't there, you could still
Right.
see the signs of progress. So even though
Right.
it's 5-15 at this point, this is about the time where things started to click and turn for the Detroit Lions. And I give Drew Petzing all the credit in the world for his ability to, similar to Ben Johnson, scripted plays, first 10 to 15 plays out the
Right.
gate, excellent, impeccable. When I think of the best at the scripted plays in the league, it's Kyle Shanahan, it's Ben Johnson, and it's starting to become Drew Petzing. Absolutely. And so I give them credit. They have the offensive, I won't say whiz kid, but just the previously unproven offensive coordinator who has shown tremendous signs of growth on the offensive side of the ball and in play calling over his first 2 years. Defense really has a lot of holes, but Detroit's defense had a lot of holes up until really last year, or I'm sorry, even this year, because they didn't really have great quarterback play until just about now. So but what Detroit also did was they leaned on their young guys. They leaned on the Brian Branches, the Aiden Hutchinsons, now the Terrion Arnolds coming in and making an impact. And the Jack Campbells. We'll see if it ends up making a difference for the Cardinals, but this is about the
Right.
time where the gears started to turn. So I think now,
Right.
call it a rebuild, call it a retool, whatever. The project of Gannon and Ossenfort started to bear fruit for Detroit right around week 7 or 8 of the second year, and we're slowly approaching that point in the
Okay.
retool rebuild. And so we'll see what ends up happening, but the results will start to turn if it's going to happen. I'm not saying it will or
Right.
won't, but the
Right.
results are going to start to turn.
Well, you were saying earlier how where's Max Melton, where the Cardinals cornerbacks they've drafted and stuff like that. What's interesting was I watched the Lions 3-day minicamp video, and their focus in minicamp was on the cornerback room, with now they adding Terry and Arnold and having Carlton Davis on board as a free agent. And they worked those corners big time for 3 straight days. Okay. What did the Cardinals do in three days? They had 1 day of practice on the field, and Gannon called off the other 2. How did that translate into this game? Their guys are covering, our guys aren't. Our young guys aren't even in the game practically. I mean, so, what I'm saying is, if you're gonna, if we're gonna set high standards, we got to put them on where it belongs with the coaching staff. You got to be willing to put in the time and effort to be on a par with other teams. That's how you turn, woeful franchises around. You got to outwork people, and hopefully we can see that in the future. But we didn't see it this off season, vis-a-vis the 3-day mandatory minicamp, and it was, in my opinion, a wasted opportunity. So, and meanwhile, over in Detroit, they were getting shit done, and with real focus. Because look at the Lions secondary yesterday. They played an outstanding game. I mean, Terrion Arnold was hurt, but he played really well. I mean, Kirby Joseph was excellent in the middle. Over on the other side, Carlton Davis played a dandy of a game. I mean, those guys played well. They played hard, and in my opinion, they were the major factor in that game because they stifled whatever the Cardinals wanted to do, and made them pay. So,
which is a
and
big deal
unfortunately, we
because
fed it into them.
it's a big deal because part of the reason last year, you could say the biggest reason last year the Lions didn't go to the Super Bowl was inability to cover.
Yep. And now they're addressing it full bore and taking every opportunity. So, yeah.
And the other thing I'll add too is that they haven't used him much, but they have Enos Rakestraw on that team too, who I thought would be great for the Cardinals in that slot position. And that's not to say
You're right.
Milton or Garrett Williams won't be excellent. It's just they have him and they're not even using him at this point. And that's that cornerback room.
Well, and I thought Brian Branch was the answer for us in that position, and that guy is a dandy, and we could have had him in the second round. Could have had him. Amazingly, I didn't think he'd last that long, and we even traded out of the early pick, which we gave to the Lions, by the way, and where they took Sam Laporta. So they traded down and got Gibbs, who was a major impact in the game yesterday. They got Laporta in round 2, who's generally considered one of the top 5 young tight ends in the game. I think that's safe to say about him, wouldn't you? And then they got Branch as the 3rd pick. My goodness. Wow. And it just, coulda, shoulda, woulda. The combination of Will Anderson Jr. and Brian Branch on this team defensively could have made such a huge difference, in my opinion. But
Yeah, and that's
I love Paris Johnson Jr. Can't go back, and I'm happy as heck to have him on the team. And I think Darius Robinson's going to be a really fine player. Hopefully we can get him back sooner rather than later. I like Max Melton. He's, they haven't developed him as quickly as I thought they could. So, I mean, we've made some good choices there. Unfortunately, with BJ Ojolari, he got hit with the injury bug and came into the league with the injury bug. So, there are workable pieces here, and I like what you said. I think winning can start at some point. Don't think of wins and losses, yet.
it doesn't have to be an indictment of the work that's been put in, right? Just because the results haven't been there
Right.
yet doesn't mean it can't turn around. And I was incredibly wrong about Dan Campbell. I was ready to fire him in week 7 of 2 years ago when it was looking like they were
Okay.
3-19 and 1. But you can see the results started to bear themselves
Right,
out, and they almost made the playoffs that second year, but
right,
just that it's not the end all be all. The record or the results is not the end all be all. It's just among the fan base, there's differing levels of faith in some sort of turnaround like that. Because some of the signs that in hindsight were the reasons why Detroit made that big step up are not necessarily there in Arizona right now. It's not to say that it won't work out or
right,
that they won't turn a corner, but the the fundamental lack of execution on defense was not something that was there in Detroit even in year 2, even though they didn't have a ton of talent on the defensive side of the ball. There wasn't a fundamental breakdown on defense.
right. Yeah, and I think that the having some veterans on the staff can help, and um, and should help, and that's what concerns me about maybe whole halves don't go bad, you know, and maybe someone says, you know what, I think we sit in a zone because we wanted to attack their running game, but we really got to cover. We can't let Jared Goff go 12 for 12. So someone at halftime stood up and said, enough of this. It wouldn't have surprised me if it was Buddha who said to
Well,
the coaches, go ahead.
if you'll remember on the broadcast too, I can't remember if it was Jen Hale or who was the sideline reporter, but they said like after the second touchdown, Bilal Nichols rounded up the defensive players and they
Right,
kind of had a meeting of the minds, like we cannot
right,
let them continue to just march down the
right.
field. So and at least they recognized it in the first half.
Yeah,
Like they recognized they weren't up to snuff, and whatever switched at
right.
halftime or after the hook and ladder play ended up coming through, but they recognized it on the sidelines after the second touchdown. They were up and at each other.
Yeah, yep. And that's a good thing. I mean, Bilal Nichols hasn't played really that well yet. I was hoping for bigger things from him. Same with Justin Jones. I mean, they're paying those guys pretty good money. I mean, Nichols had two solo tackles yesterday, so that's a start. And but it's good that he's rallying people up, and it's good he's putting pressure on the guys to step up and play better. So, but it'll be fascinating to see how the team comes out against the Commanders. Commanders have been playing a little better than people imagined. Um, so and they're on TV tonight, so the team can scout them right there. Are you going to be watching that game, or you working
Yeah, I
tonight?
will I will be working that game from radio in Sacramento, so it's not like
Oh,
I'm
you are. Oh, great.
yeah, I'll be tuned in. I'll see how the Jaden Daniels experiment is going. I haven't gotten a great look at Washington yet. I kind of was in and out of that game against Tampa that they played, which they got down so early, so fast that it didn't really matter. Their defense couldn't stop anyone. But
Yeah.
tonight will be a good look at Washington, and also uh, not only are they flying from Ohio to Arizona, they're doing it on a short week too. So, just another little thing that works in the Cardinals' favor.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Are they flying to Arizona from? They're coming here.
Yeah, I would assume they're
Oh,
flying directly
they're
from
going to practice
Ohio.
here all week.
That would be my guess. I could
Oh,
be
wow.
wrong, but I would
Yeah.
assume that if you've already lost the day of practice, Tuesday's normally an off day anyways. They wouldn't practice the day after a game. So I would
Right.
assume if it's just Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then you fly out Friday night or Saturday morning anyways, they probably just go to Arizona.
Right. All right. Yeah. So interesting game coming up with Cliff on one end and Kyler Petzing on the other. There'll be a lot of motion from both sides to try to step the game up, and could be pretty interesting TV. I think the Commanders, you know, they're kind of sneaky good in certain ways. They run the ball. Brian Robinson Jr. is rough. I mean, they got another big big running back to defend this week. Him and the Commanders' offensive line is good. You got Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry. You got some, and Jaden Daniels, the rookie, who won his second game, all on field goals. But who cares? You win. That's pretty cool. And he's looked pretty dang good, running the ball and throwing with accuracy. So that's going to be an interesting game to watch and to see what happens. In the interim, I hope you guys have a good week. Kyle, he's finishing up his work for the Oakland A's this week.
Yep.
That's going to be an experience, huh? Last home game
Yep.
in Oakland. And then they head your way to, Sacramento. Yeah.
Yep. This is gonna be it. This 3 games left, and the last game is gonna be pretty chaotic. I have a feeling. I'm not gonna be able
Right.
to go to it, but it's gonna be pretty chaotic out there.
Yeah. They wouldn't open up Mountain Davis, but
Nope.
just think if Kyler had gone into baseball, he might have been playing in that game.
There's a pretty good
Yeah.
chance the Oakland A's certainly would have taken a
Yeah.
first round pick of
Yeah.
Kyler's athletic ability to play center field.
Yeah. So, thanks to you, buddy, for all you do, and thanks to everyone here. Drop a comment for us to just discuss, please, if you feel so inclined, at Revenge of the Birds or on Twitter or here on YouTube in the comment section. Hope you enjoyed today's show. See you next week. And in the interim, may the red rain